right, thanks for tuning in to Brews and Boxing. I'm your host, Filthy Rich. Blah blah blah, driver's seat. Blah blah blah, shotgun. Jimmy James, how you doing, bro?
Oh, I'm good. I just wanted to give my thoughts and prayers to Lennon Castillo, who lost by a brutal KO to Callum Smith last weekend. That sent him pretty much immediately to the hospital. It does seem like he's doing okay though, so I just wanted to wish him a speedy recovery. If you get a chance to see it, do it, but not pretty.
Yeah, I'll drink to that in a second here. On a lighter note, I am 4-0 in my fantasy football league this week. So who's the loser now? Lennon Castillo, Judge Jimmy James. Let's pop it open. This is Brews and News. So pop your brews. Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Let's get on with the show. All right, brews and news time. Hope you got your brew popped. There's tons of news to get into, tons and tons of news to get into. Big stories this week. We could not figure out how to narrow it down, but the biggest story right now, outside of Joshua Usyk, is Manny Pacquiao has officially retired. He's getting a lot of props from everybody on Twitter, all the former boxers, current boxers, and just fans in general. James, just give me some thoughts, give me some memories, give me something on the great, legendary Manny Pacquiao.
Oh yeah, we touched kind of brought this up last week. It wasn't official then, but it's now official. It's sad, but at the same time, kind of serene because he went out without injury, right? He's now running for president in the Philippines. Like, he's going on to do greater and bigger things, right? Not just for himself, but for his entire country, which is unheard of. You'll probably never meet or see another individual like Manny Pacquiao in the sport of boxing at all, man. It's just good that's the way he went out. Didn't go out on a win, but you know what? I don't think he really needs to at that point. He's had a great career, 8 division champion. He's obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's in probably my top 5 pound for pound all time. I mean, I'd probably have to go through it, but he's just a fighter you're never going to see again. Unmatched, had some great battles. I mean, my favorite fights are still with him and Marquez, man. Those 4 fights that they had. This 4 fights doesn't usually happen with anybody, but the battles they had was back and forth, and those were fantastic fights. I just respect Manny, what he brought to the game. It's just a shame that I'm not going to be able to talk about him on future shows unless it's probably not about boxing. So that's
Well,
kind of the thing.
yeah, I would say let's not jump the gun here because you can be retired from boxing. And we saw what Mike Tyson and Roy Jones did. I wouldn't be surprised if Conor McGregor got that exhibition fight he wanted, because there's a ton of money to be made. I don't know how campaign financing works in the Philippines, but you're going to finance your own run for presidency. That fight alone should be able to cover everything. Look, Manny, I know you said he's probably top 5. I probably have him in the top 10. I have my 5 solidified. I don't know if anyone can crack like the Sam Langfords, the Sugar Ray Robinson, Harry Greb, and those guys. But he's definitely on the cusp of top 10. It's hard to overlook him, putting him against like the Jimmy Wilds or the Willie Peps. He's conquered more divisions. We're never going to see anything like that again. A guy starting at like flyweight, moving all the way up to welterweight. I even think he fought Mayweather at 154, junior middleweight. Let's not forget he wanted to fight Golovkin. Manny has left us plenty of memories. I like the battles he had with Timothy Bradley. But you can't go wrong. I know just last week I was kind of put on the spot who I had ranked higher, Mayweather or Pacquiao. And at the time, looking at Mayweather's like resume, he has like 20 or 30 Hall of Famers. And not to say I forgot, but you look at Manny's resume and it is pretty deep too. And again, he fought the guys at their best. It was too bad the two of them had a huge dud of a fight, but it is what it is. I do think at this point, I think we've seen the last of Manny in the ring. Drink to you, Manny Pacquiao, as we move on. If you got any final thoughts.
This is a great way to end it. Cheers.
All right. So there's other big news coming out. It's kind of went under the radar, but an investigation into the 2016 Rio Olympics reveals that boxing matches were fixed. So, James, I want to ask you, is this a big deal? Is it no deal? Is it somewhere in between? What are your thoughts on Olympic boxing being rigged in 2016?
Well, man, this is, you want to talk about opening Pandora's box, especially considering when you have just these crazy decisions, or like, how did these three judges have so and so winning? This is just ridiculous, unless there was collusion or some sort of, nefarious thing happening. Like, it's like, it's just unfortunate. This really puts a big dark cloud over at least the Olympic sport of boxing. Because I know some of these guys, I mean, at least myself personally, if somebody has a gold medal in boxing, I hold that pretty high, because that is like those are some of the best fighters that you have. You've got like an Usyk or a Loma or a Rigondeaux. You could probably name way more than I can, but I mean, there's so many big fighters that have this, and now, man, maybe that's all BS. Like, how far back does this go? If it's just 2016, that's just when they got caught, right? Like, how long was Russia doping in the Olympics before they got caught? So this just goes back, God knows how many years. So this is, and who wants to say it's just in this particular part of the sport? You know what I mean? Like, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, like, oh boy, this just opened Pandora's box. So I feel bad for anybody, any of the boxers who actually fought in the 2016 Olympics, like McConlin, who was an individual who definitely got cheated out. But this is bad news. And I hope, I don't know, I hope they find it and it ends here. Hopefully it was just something in 2016, but that's not a good look for the sport.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Is it a big deal, no deal? I don't know, but it's definitely something. Some of these guys, and my guess would be all of these guys, want that gold medal. You don't get a second chance. Well, I guess some guys will get a second chance. Lomo and Rigondeaux were both two-time gold medalists, but you have to stay at the amateur ranks in order to qualify for the Olympics. So why is it not a big deal? Well, the guys aren't getting paid. And maybe to fund the Olympics, you're going to need some money. So we're going to have to make things go our way. Look at like the WWF. That's all rigged, and or the WWE, they're doing well. I guess they're really not. AEW's on top. But I also think when it comes to like these subjective sports, like you said, this may not be the only sport that was fixed. Olympic gymnastics comes to mind too. So who knows what's going on here? I do want to mention a couple things in this piece. I think ESPN was the one who's reporting this. The judges from 2016 were not involved whatsoever in the 2020 Olympics. It's not to say that there wasn't corruption in 2020 or 2012 or anything like that, but the judges they found throughout the Olympics in 2016, the boxing side, were not involved in 2020. So we can start there. The other thing is, Shakur Stevenson and Conlon were the two big names. Neither one of them gold medaled, should they have. Because when it came down to how the rigging happened, judges were given I guess a statement on who should be winning. And I guess they let that influence their decision from the preliminaries up until like the seeding and the ranking. So when it got to that gold medal fight, it was almost like the spread is for this guy, so favor this guy. I mean, judging has been bad even in professional boxing. So I don't know. I'm not surprised. It is a real story, and hopefully something is done about this. But uh, it'll probably just be a matter of time before we report a story or before we read a report of a story. The 2020 Olympics were rigged and the 2012 Olympics were fixed. So let's just hope it gets better. But I mean, I'm watching it to see who I think is better. I'm looking for the diamonds in the rough. The judges, even in professional boxing, doesn't matter to me. My own two eyes, we saw Golovkin and Canelo in the professional ranks. Number one, my two eyes told me who won that fight. I don't need judges to tell me anything. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
Just that it was it's the AIBA, so the International Boxing Association, who was doing this one. So hopefully it's limited to this. Like you said, it didn't have affiliations with the 2020 Olympics. So hopefully it didn't get too crazy, but they've been around for, damn near 70 years or something like that. So this is, hopefully it doesn't spread.
And one last thing I got to mention, Mick Conlon has direct tweeted to the AIBA, I want my medal. I will DM you my address. And I hope he gets his gold medal. They eventually apologized to Roy Jones, and Roy Jones got his medal. AIBA, give Mick Conlon his medal. Let's pause and drink for that.
Do it.
All right, next story. Jaime Munguia has signed a fight with Gabe Rosado for November 13th. We recently touched on this not too long ago about, I think it was the WBA, maybe the WBC, having an eliminator where Jaime Munguia would have fought Derevyanchenko at some point. Someone probably would have been the number one contender for Jermell Charlo, or was it Jamal at 160? Whatever it was. He chose to go whoever it was. He chose to go the other route and just take probably, my guess would be the bigger money fight in Gabe Rosado. Probably the, risk or reward. There's probably less risk and more reward to fight Rosado. So, yeah, November 13th, names are on the dotted line. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I thought it was, when we did touch on it before, I thought it was interesting because that, for Munguia, being the fact that he's young, like 24 years old, like 37 fights, 30 knockouts. He's a force right now, and he's only learning and getting better. But when he didn't take the Derevyanchenko WBC eliminator fight to then have a chance to go after the belt, I think pretty sure it's at 160, I believe. So that would be the
middleweight.
You said Charlo. Yeah, whatever. Charlo.
Jamal.
We'll see if that guy's even that's Jamal. So maybe Jamal, I don't remember which one was in the scuffle with the waitress.
That was Jamal.
Okay, so he might not even be he might be in prison. Who the hell knows? So maybe that's why I missed it. But yeah, I thought that was just weird because that seems like the better path. If you're talking about getting like your biggest payday, your biggest recognition, right? However, I mean, for me personally, I like Gabe Rosado. I think I like his attitude, like his abilities in the ring. Even he doesn't have a really good record, which I didn't really realize until I just kind of looked into it, right? Because I know he's always in big fights to me, is what it seems like. And I didn't realize that his record is like 26-13, which is definitely, for big name fighter, at least to me, that I feel like he's up there. That's just a bad record, but he loses to really good people. You know what I mean? Like, he had some names on here, like, well, Daniel Jacobs. We shouldn't have lost that. That was a different story. We can't talk about that. But Martin Murray, David Lemieux, Jermell Charlo, Gennady Golovkin, Alfredo Angulo. Like, it's a big names, right? So it's interesting. Maybe it's just the promoters don't believe Munguia is ready for a Derevanchenko. But I almost think that Rosado is probably at least at this stage, he seems like he's really good right now. So I think he's probably the more dangerous fight. So maybe they're looking for fireworks, maybe they're looking for giving someone else a reason to have the bigger fight, right? But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for it. I've been waiting for Munguia to get into a big name fight. I think this is the biggest that he can fight at this division right now anyway.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, one of the names you left off was like Kid Chocolate Peter Quillen. I mean, you just named like what 5 guys, but if you went down that list, these guys are really good. What do you say, 13 losses? Those are big name guys he lost to. I would say just probably every single one of them, 10 of them at least. If you want to say the other 3 are no big names, then welcome casual fans to Bruising Boxing. But he fought some big name guys when they were at their best, I guess you could say. As far as like a Derevanchenko fight goes, look, Derevanchenko is probably going to be there. I don't know what Rosado's like amateur background and things like that are, but he has been through some wars. At some point, it's coming. It's going to have to come to an end. Jaime Munguia is probably right taking this fight. He can beat Rosado. He can beat Derevanchenko too. But why not let Derevanchenko get that much older and fight him later on? Because that fight's not going anywhere. Derevanchenko probably has the better amateur background. So take this fight while you're young. Let Derevanchenko get old. No one's going anywhere, especially Munguia. It's not going anywhere. 24 years old. He's still got some future left in him. We'll be talking about him on this show. Unless we get canceled, we're going to talk about him on this show for years to come. Anything else before we move on?
No, I think that's it. We'll probably touch more when we get closer to game time.
Got it. So I guess wrapping things up, our final story here tonight. I'm sorry, it's not our final story. Ryan Garcia. I skipped over that. Ryan Garcia says he'll be the best boxer of this era. I don't know if he tweeted it out or said it in an interview, but let's touch on that quickly. Ryan Garcia, is he going to be the best boxer of this era? I can answer that one for you, but the fans want to hear you. Go for it.
Well, see, you skipped this news story because it's not news and it's crazy. You thought it was like, oh yeah, I just put something on paper because of whatever. Yeah, this makes absolutely no sense. I mean, does he have high aspirations? Sure, everybody does when you're boxing, but to call yourself that you are going to be the best boxer of this era, I don't believe that that's the case. I think he has the ability to be good, potentially great, but to be the best boxer of this era, I personally don't see that happening. And he definitely needs to get back into the ring and start fighting big name people, because you're only going to become that great if you are defeating people in their prime. At least that's my opinion. You have to get in there and go back and do that. If you're not doing that, then you're just talking. You're Gary Russell Jr. You're going to get stripped of your belt. You're going to get off the ring magazine rankings. You're going to get off my rankings, all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, yeah, that's my opinion of this. This is just he better get back in there and he better be fighting somebody big.
Yeah, like quickly, people may not know this. So I'm just going to break it down for the fans. As far as being stripped of Ring Magazine stuff, Oscar De La Hoya maybe not Golden Boy, but Oscar De La Hoya owns Ring Magazine. So he can probably pull some strings to manipulate things to make sure Canelo's number one and Ryan Garcia stays ranked. Now, I know when going off topic here a little bit, Canelo was stripped of his when he tested positive versus Golovkin. They did not rank him, and they had to explain themselves on like this big article. Made sense to me, but it also makes no sense to me. And now, as far as like going back to Ryan Garcia here, Yeah, he's going to have to fight big name after big name after big name. And I can't think of many guys who Lomachenko has done that for several fights in a row. He was fighting the biggest name available who would fight against him. Ryan Garcia is still young. Where are we at? 130? He has potential to move up to 135, 140, 147. I don't know if he gets past 154. Towards the end of his career, he may end up at 154, but who are those guys that are going to get in your path? Look, I am taking this very seriously, but you ain't gonna, and there's nothing that indicates he's gonna be the best fighter of this era. Like, until he even sniffs the top 10 pound for pound list on Bruising Boxing, forget about Bruising Boxing, ESPN, or any other website, Ring Magazine. I don't see this guy as a top 10 pound for pound fighter in the near future, and even in the distant future. Do you want to do one more before we go?
Oh, I mean, we can touch base real quick that he is in the camp, the Reynoso camp, if we really want to. He said he took a hiatus for mental. Maybe he took a hiatus because he was too roided up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just,
look,
I'm not tossing anything. I'm just saying that if you want to go down a path to why he's not, like, why he stopped fighting, it could be something. Need to get clean first.
There is speculation that he may have been faking this mental breakdown because he failed a VADA test, a drug test, a PED test. And he's using that as a way to say, I don't want to fight right now. And I hope that's not true. That is wrong. So that's all I got to say on Ryan Garcia. Look, one last thing. Isaac Cruz called out 3 guys: Tank Davis, Teofimo Lopez, and Devin Haney. Isaac Cruz, little dude, 130, but like 5'4", has a lot of power. He lacks the skill right now, but he'll develop into a great fighter one day, probably better than Garcia. Just take one guy. Who would you want to see him fight out of them 3?
Well, this is a little dude. You make me think of like Brian Castano, right? Who just took down, I think, like Teixeira, and then took down, as far as I think, I thought he beat Charlo. But if I'm going to see him fight this, if he's like this, probably Lopez. That would be my guess. If he's like that, Haney, no. Davis can get a bigger fight. I don't want to hurt this kid if he's super young. Why don't you take some time, maybe fight Davis when you're more polished? But Lopez would be the guy that I would want to see him fight. That'd be my take so far on this. But again, I don't really know the fighter, Rich. You definitely know him a lot more than I do. So you've intrigued me as far as that goes. So I'm going to start doing more research on it. But Lopez would be my pick.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think with Isaac Cruz, I think I was the only one that had him ranked at the lightweight division. I think I had him 8, right around with Michelle Rivera, who's kind of a virtually unknown right now. But I would take Devin Haney for a couple quick reasons. I see Lopez and Gervonta Davis at 140 in the next year or so. Both them guys are going to be 140. Isaac Cruz just too small for 140 right now. So Devin Haney, out of 3 names, is more likely to be at that division. And I know Devin Haney's with DAZN. Isaac Cruz is with the PBC, but I still think that fight can happen. I don't think Isaac Cruz is really like committed to PBC. I can see him jumping around kind of like Danny Jacobs once did. So, I mean, that would be my pick out of the 3. I told you today was huge news week. So we had to get everything covered. That's all I got. That's all we got for Bruising News. Let's move on with the show. All right, let's move on to Bruising Reviews. This week, we saw what could be the fight of the year. I ain't going to lie, man. At least it's a top 5 fight of the year. It lived up to the hype. This was Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk in London's, I think it was the U2 something arena, what used to be the Wembley Stadium. James, let us know what happened.
Oh, well, I'm gonna apologize right off the bat because I'm gonna tout my own horn a little bit. All right, like
I'll
If you
drink to
go
you.
if you go back and watch last week's show and we look at the keys to victory, I only said a couple of things for Usyk. One, he had to have the footwork. He had to move in and out, hit, move in, which he did. He never stopped moving. The other big thing that I said is he's just going to have to attack the face. Just keep attacking the head of Anthony Joshua because you know it's suspect. That's pretty much all he did the entire fight. And then I'm not trying to take anything away from what Usyk did because you need to watch. If you haven't watched that fight, you need to watch that fight because Usyk was a shorter fighter, a lighter fighter, doesn't have the reach advantage, but had the skills to, in my opinion, I thought he dominated that fight, right? So it ended up being a decision win for Usyk. Could have been a knockout at some point, but he did stop in the he had a couple of good rocks. Stopped in the 12th from hitting him after he had him on the ropes. I mean, Joshua didn't look good at all at that point. There also was a nasty mouse on the eye in the 9th round. Usyk hit Joshua with a left. I don't know if it was a jab or a hook to the face, and his eye just, it started up swole and then it started just like super quick. You know, I've seen that once before. Like you could, like a minute and a half, your eye can be shut, right? I'm going to give credit to Joshua's cut man in the corner because they opened that thing back up real quick. But after the fight, Joshua did say that he could not see out of that eye after the 9th round. So does that take some stuff into effect? Maybe it seemed like Usyk was more effective, maybe, but Usyk was brilliant. We've been saying on this show a while, like Usyk has not proven himself at heavyweight. Definitely dominant at cruiserweight, and he needed a big name on his belt to move him into any sort of contention or ranking. And at least for me, the judge on this show, this definitely moved him up in my rankings immensely. Especially not just because he won, but because of how he won. Anatoly Lomachenko is a pretty good trainer. I know he was definitely training him for this fight at least. And this doesn't take anything away from Usyk because he has an outstanding amateur record like 335-15. Definitely worth everything. But this was awesome. If you see the fight, it was scored close. I personally had it 116-112. Where there was only a couple of rounds in the middle where Joshua seemed to do something good, but he just couldn't connect. He looked sloppy. He didn't look like he was against Pulev, and I think that he just wasn't prepared for Usyk. Usyk was too fast. Doesn't have super knockout power, but doesn't just too fast. So I mean, to me, that was a really good fight. So I mean, I'm curious to know what your thoughts were, Rich, because I know a lot of people have been saying that, oh, AJ should now retire and this is just ridiculous and blah blah blah. Like, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this whole situation.
I don't think AJ is done yet. I don't. We have not seen the last of him, and we're not going to see the last of him for a long time. We just touched on Ryan Garcia. We'll probably hear from him longer than Ryan Garcia. Let's get that out there. Look, AJ, Anthony Joshua is a street kid. He gets a lot of, maybe not a lot of flack, but he didn't get into boxing till he was about 16, where someone like Mike Tyson got into it when he was like 12 to get him off the streets. But AJ is a street kid. Don't let the accent fool you. I think the Americans hear this, the British accent. That's not even a British accent. But they hear the British accent. It's like a Borat. But they hear that accent and they think, what a nice gentleman. What a very kind man. AJ's a street kid. This dude did not fight. From the highlights I saw and from the comments I read from former boxers, he did not let his hands go. He should have fought this dude the way Golovkin should have fought Canelo. They have 3 stages of boxing. There's boxing, and then there's the power, and then there's what do you have left, and that's fighting. And that's what Terrence Crawford has. When he can't, if he can't outbox you, and he can't just like outfight you, I'm sorry, when he can't outbox you and whatever, he will fight you. There's something else. That's the thing Lomachenko learned from the Orlando Salido fight. So Salido will fight you. He's going to do whatever he can to win. AJ did not do that. When the rematch happens, which I believe there will, I think there is a rematch clause. I don't know if it's 100%. I don't know if it's going to happen immediately. My guess is going to be AJ has the control for that, so it's probably going to happen. Where do we end? We're on the dawn of October. We'll probably see this fight February 2022, maybe January 2022. I think these two are going to get it on. Look, a couple more thoughts I have before I throw it back to you here. This reminds me of Ragondiao and Lomachenko. You had two gold medalists where the bigger guy beat the smaller guy quite handily. This was not the case. This was more Ray Leonard versus Roberto Duran. Duran, the bigger guy, won, but the second fight, Leonard beat Duran, the smaller guy. The smaller guy can win. And Usyk, from what I saw in highlights, put on a clinic. He was just clearly the better boxer on that night. Now, what's AJ going to do? He's going to have to fight. You're not going to outbox Usyk. You are not going to outbox a Tony Lomachenko's guys. That I've touted Reynoso as trainer of the year. It's probably Lomachenko's dad. It's probably Papachenko for fighter of the year or trainer of the year. As far as this, I don't know if we're going to call it the pound for pound ranking. We're going to touch on that quickly because I had Usyk pound for pound at number 10. He's definitely moving up. You had him at 13. You've clearly said he's moving up. Raider didn't have him ranked in 15 spots. Raider, I think, is going to have him in the top 10 somewhere. So those are my quick thoughts on this. Do you have anything you want to add before we just discuss what's next for each guy?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You brought up pound for pound list. That's one thing I forgot to talk about. So at least for me, you're right. I didn't have him. I've been putting him lower and lower on my my pound for pound list. Every time we put one out, right? Because he hasn't been fighting. And the people he has been fighting, nothing special. I mean, even him and Chisora, it wasn't, he didn't look good. He didn't look like he did against AJ at all. So for him to come out and do this, at least for me, in that time, it's you came to play in a championship match on away turf in front of 70,000 people in Tottenham Hotspur. Like you are the underdog and you came out and put on a clinic. For me, that, at least I'm gonna say it here, spoiler alert, but Usyk probably jumps up in my pound for pound list for active fighters at number 4. So you guys talk about a jump, 13-4. Woo! What's this boy smoking crack? I don't know. Maybe I am, but that's just what I see. That this is such a big prove it fight for Usyk, and I mean, I'll say it here again. There is no way that this was just fake. That this is Usyk. This is how he is. He is this good. He just finally got the opposition to bring him to that level, and he did it all the time in cruiserweight. And there's only really one big fighter in cruiserweight, which is Breedis, and he handled him pretty easy too, man. So yeah. I think this is going to be not the last time we talk about Usyk. I think he is a danger to any of the other big two, besides the rematch, danger to Fury and a danger to Wilder. But I mean, well, that's a bigger talk about those guys, but yeah, man, I think that's at least where I stand with him. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Pound for pound wise, he's what I had him at 10. I think he's gonna move up. I'm sure he's gonna move up. I have to assess my other 9 guys, I should say. As far as heavyweights go, I don't even think he made he didn't make my top 10 heavyweights. Part of pound for pound is if everyone meets at one weight, who would win? And he cleaned out a pretty deep and underrated and underhyped cruiserweight division. But you look at that cruiserweight division, everyone who has a loss, it all came from Usyk. So Usyk cleaned out cruiserweight the way Terrence Crawford has cleaned out every other division. They weren't glamorous divisions, but if you have a loss in your record, it came from Crawford or it came from Usyk if you were still in that division. So all that aside, I do want to hear what's next for let's go with the guy who just signed a lifetime contract with Matchroom, which could have been a distraction, by the way. I want to know Anthony Joshua signed a lifetime contract with Matchroom days before this fight. I don't know if it was a distraction. I guess you can answer that. Do you think it was? And give me 3 guys who are next for him. Include Usyk if you'd like.
Well, Eddie Hearn is probably very pissed off. I'm probably going to put that out there. He definitely cannot be happy if he just signed what I guess maybe he is, maybe he's not, but whatever lifetime contract is, that's how it was positioned. I don't know what that means, but Joshua is young. So I'm assuming decade, which not good promoting for Hearn. So Joshua better step it back up. But if he wants to get back on that, it might be a tall road. He's going to fight Usyk. He's going to have to go try to get his belts back. That's obviously a number one. Number 2, I mean, it's Wilder or Fury. You touched on it earlier. Like Joshua, if you were in the heavyweight division and you have a loss and you're a big name, you probably lost to Joshua. So he's going to have to fight one of those. Obviously on October 9th, we'll see Fury Wilder. Well, hopefully we'll see Fury Wilder. Haven't heard any news on that. So if that's the case, he's probably going to fight whoever loses that, would be my guess. Obviously, if he can get the Usyk fight first and win, then it would probably be the winner. But I don't think the pre-prediction, back if I don't know, Marty McFly here, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to beat Usyk at all. But either way, that's what I think for Joshua. He's going to have to do the rematch first. If he doesn't do the rematch, he'd have to fight the loser of Fury Wilder. Otherwise, if he gets the rematch, find some way to win by a miraculous decision, he would probably fight the winner in Fury. But it's going to be one of those 3 guys. There's no reason for him to fight anybody else in this division, for my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, that's tossing it back to you, man. What do you think? What do you think's next for Usyk?
So I'm one of them dudes that says sit on your belt because I'm immediately brought back to someone like Buster Douglas, who defeated Mike Tyson and was told sit on this belt, go fight someone and build your name up, because the minute you lose, you may never have another chance at this. And he didn't listen and lost to Evander Holyfield, and that was it. We never heard from James Buster Douglas again. So Usyk's got skills. Usyk can go out there and beat somebody. He could beat anybody he wants at this point. But I would still recommend take a tune-up fight. We're gonna call this a tune-up fight. Someone like I'm not calling any of these guys tune-up fights, but I think the risk-reward balance is in Usyk's favor if he fights someone like Areola, who came off a good fight with Andy Ruiz, and he's hungry. You can beat him, and he's probably not going to want a whole lot of money for that fight. So there's one name, Chris Areola, just a dude who is still in the light right now, but his career is almost over. I would say someone like a Joseph Parker. Parker, I think if we had stocks on these guys, Parker's stock might be slipping a little bit. If I recall, I think you and Raider had him at 3 and 4 in the heavyweight division. I had him at 7. I think you guys did. I could be wrong on that. I don't have notes in front of me, but I had him at 7. And I think Parker's looking for a fight. This might be the guy this might be the guy you should fight. I think Usyk can beat Parker. They're about the same size. They have the same skill set. The risk is higher than the reward versus someone like Areola. And I said Ruiz, but we're not going to count Ruiz now. Parker's on the zone, so that fight can be made. So that'd be another name I'd go with. And, off the top of my head, I don't even know. I'm drawing blanks here. Luis Ortiz comes to mind. You know what? Not Povetkin. Who's the other Russian Joshua just knocked out? The
Pulev?
Russian Pulev. Fight Pulev. Pulev's career's coming to an end. You just beat up Joshua. I think he can beat Pulev. I think there's a big European fight that can be made there. So those are a few names I would throw out there. So that would be go for it.
That's what you got. All right. No. I'm going to toss one back to you, right? Because this is probably information that most people probably don't know, but in the amateur career for Usyk, he fought Joe Joyce. This probably would have been in their prime, right? I think they were both like 24 and 27 or something like that, because Joe Joyce is like 8,000 years old. So my question is, because, well, real quick, since you put me on blast, I did have Joseph Parker as 3 on my heavyweight list back in February. And that is not where I have him now. So that is, if you want to play like Bob Barker bad music, yeah, I F that up big time, dude. That was bad. Whatever, man. I'll take it. Accountability taken. But Joe Joyce, Usyk rematch 8 years later. What are your thoughts on that? Because that is another name. I'm pretty sure he still holds a belt. So what do you think?
Look, I think that's a really good one. That was another name that was on the tip of my tongue, because him and Dubois, I was even going to say Dubois. Those are the names that just slipped my mind right there. But Joe Joyce has a very, I don't know if it's very similar to Joshua, but he's one of them dudes that just stands there in the middle. And if Usyk's got the footwork that we talked about, we have videos of him dancing around, he can beat Joe Joyce. I think Joe Joyce just too much risk. I think Joe Joyce hits him one time and that might be over. Again, Anthony Joshua didn't let the hands go. Anthony Joshua lets the hands go, and Anthony Joshua, I think, wins that fight. But he just played defense. Maybe he wasn't prepared. He was in the spotlight of signing a lifetime contract. I like a Joe Joyce fight with Usyk. I just think it takes something away if Usyk loses to Joe Joyce. And now, where are we at? Does Anthony Joshua go after the belts? Does he go after a rematch? And I'll give you the answer quickly, if I may. The answer is you go after the belts. There is one in the history of boxing. There is one guy who is a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world, and you know who he is. His name is Muhammad Ali. You want to get your name there with Muhammad Ali? You become the second 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. Joshua, I think, wants this fight. He's going to get those belts back. I feel like he has learned a lesson. By hook or by crook, by the end of Joshua's career, he's going to be the second 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. Judge Jimmy James, you know what I'm doing? I'm drinking to that.
Fair enough, man. Opinions.
Anything you want to touch on before we wrap it up, B?
Oh, I think that's it.
All right, well, let's not roll the credits, but let's move on to the end of the show. All right, that about does it for us this week. Be sure to tune in next week. We have top 10 filthy 5 pound for pound, top 10 filthy 5, 10, 5, whatever. We got something going on next week where we rank a division. I don't have my notes in front of me, but you'll have to tune in to find out which division we choose to rank. So Judge Jimmy James, if they're listening to us, where can they watch us? And if they're watching us, where can they hear our voices?
If you're listening to us and you want to watch us, you can go to YouTube.com/Brews and Boxing. If you are watching us and want to listen to us, say you're cutting the grass and don't have time to watch YouTube, you can go to any major podcast site and type in Brews and Boxing.
Awesome. Just for me to close out the show, because James had Joseph Parker ranked number 3, and he reminded me of the Price is Right song. Price is Right's on their 50th year tonight. They have a good special going on with Drew Carey honoring Bob Barker and who else. So whatever you can do, check that out, man. I think we all grew up on Price is Right. I don't care if you're 10 years old or 100 years old. You probably grew up on Price is Right. So for Judge Jimmy James, and somewhere in the interwebs and the internets is Raider Live. I'm Filthy Rich. I'll drink to you. I'll drink to that. You guys have a good night. We'll check in next week.